It's Smissmas, everybody, which means we're all getting two things nobody asked for. Whatville and yet another Santa hat. Let's go ahead and make a tier list. Let's start off by establishing our tiers that we're going to be grading the items. S tier is for Santa. These are the absolute best items. You might even wear them outside of the holiday season. A, B, C, just like in school. A is for the absolute best. B is for better than average. And C is can say it passed, but just barely. These last three are my terrible tiers. D is for delete, should not be in the game. FU is should not be in the game, and I'm actually pissed at you for trying to get it in the game, and a little pissed at Valve for accepting it. And finally, we got the lump of coal tier for the absolute worst of the worst. Let's start things off with a Dapper Noel. This is an all-class Santa hat and facial hair, and it was the genesis of this video. The actual modeling on the fringe and the pom-pom, it's not as good as some other Santa hats that we'll see in this video. They also made some weird choices on facial hair, like the Scout one looks weird, Pyro and Sniper as well. Also, when you see things like glasses that are over the NG's goggles, it makes me feel like they just shoehorned this into being an all-class. I also don't love the way the modeling was done on the beards and facial hair. A lot of times it ends up looking more like a lump of clay than actual hair. Yeah, this looks a lot worse on a lot of these classes than I remembered or expected. Before I made the tier list, I expected the Dapper Noel to be in C tier as barely acceptable, but after looking at how bad it is on a bunch of classes, I'm actually going to demote it to the delete tier. The Colonel Kringle is also an all-class hat that answers the question, what if a beret and a Santa hat had a child together? Unfortunately, the answer to that question is about as bad as you'd expect. And more importantly, who's asking this question? Seriously, who's wanting a beret mixed with a Santa hat? This is not something that anybody wanted. It doesn't look good. There's not a lot of variation. They could have at least made the emblem different for different classes. But yeah, there's a reason you never see anybody wearing this hat in game. This is pretty terrible. The Colonel Kringle becomes our first FU tier submission. I feel personally affronted that it made it into the game. The Professional's Pom-Pom is another all-class, but this one looks a little bit different. It's got this tag here, which kind of breaks up the visual variety of the fringe. The fringe itself is actually very nicely modeled on the pom-pom and the brim here as well. I also like that you can actually see these striations of the actual individual textures on the hat. It's actually modeled really nicely. It also passes the test of, does this look nice on all of the classes? And I really feel the answer to this one is yes. I like that you can actually see the little hairs kind of sticking out here, so it's not just one straight line going across the brim like some of the other Santa hats do. I also feel like this is something that if you saw a snowboarder wearing it, you wouldn't immediately think, oh, Santa hat. So you can get away with wearing this during any of the cold months and not feel like you're being overtly Santa cosplaying. The fact that the Pom-Pom's Professional looks so good on so many classes and that it's not beat you over the head with Santa theming, I'm actually gonna go ahead and put this one in B tier. The Wanderer's Wool is a soldier-only hat, and it's definitely a Santa hat because its default are these colors with this fringe and a white beard. What's unique about this hat is it has 3 different styles, technically 6 if you make them bloody or not, but when it's not Smissmas time, you can change to one of these 2 styles to look essentially like a hobo, but you don't feel obliged to look like Santa year-round, which is a problem some of the other hats have, like the Dapper Noel. One thing that I really don't like about this one though is that they gave Soldier a cigarette. Why wouldn't you just give him a cigar that's more canon? That kind of rubs me the wrong way. Based on all that, I'm actually going to put the Wanderer's Wool into C tier. I fully expected it to be in one of these 2 tiers before I looked at it more closely. The Shoestring Santa is another all-class that gives you a Santa hat with a fake beard and mustache, but it also has this piece of rope tying it together with a $1 price tag on it. There's no changes from class to class, which is to say they all look the same, which is to say they all look really, really bad. It's got this patch on it. It really does look like something you'd find in a bargain bin at a $1 store. It sets out to do something and it achieves that thing, but at the end of the day, you still look absolutely terrible, which is why nobody wears this hat. The shoestring Santa, I'm kind of on the fence between FU tier and delete tier. It looks cheap, just looks bad. F it, let's put it in the FU tier. I think it belongs there. The Kringle collection is a soldier-only misc. It's one of the oldest Smissmas items in the game. It essentially adds fur to the end of Soldier's sleeves, it puts some on his collar, and it changes his belt buckle to more of a Santa-style one. Back when it first came out in 2011, Soldier did not have many body cosmetics, so you'd see Soldier mains wearing this outside of the Smissmas season. I remember how excited people were when they realized they could combine this with the Bach to do a really classic Santa loadout. I definitely have a lot of nostalgia for this loadout, but you do have to notice that essentially this misc is just adding these kind of furry sleeve ends and collar to the soldier's already existing body. That's in pretty stark difference to the gift bringer, which in my mind is just a better version of the Kringle collection, but I really believe the modeling is just way better with the total belt replacement, a nicer looking buckle, the fur itself goes all the way down the center of the coat and caps it off at the bottom. And on top of all this, Heavy can also wear it and it looks great on him as well. Basically, you can put any white beard, any Santa hat on Heavy, and as long as you have the gift bringer, you've got a great looking Santa loadout. I'm probably gonna catch some flack for this, but I'm putting the Kringle collection in B tier. Despite the nostalgia, despite it being an OG Smissmas cosmetic, just the fact that it only changes the cuffs and the lapel versus the gift bringer, which is really just a total body makeover that's better modeled. I'm gonna put the gift bringer in S tier. The Pocket Santa is an all-class misc. It's a pocket buddy, which was a big fad a few years back. Basically, it's a Santa Claus popping out of a brick chimney with some snow up top, and he's waving at you. The modeling is not terrible on the Santa model itself, like you see detail in the beard, and I do appreciate the decision to make the chimney made out of brick. That's kinda cute. At the end of the day though, it's kind of garish and kind of big, and just I don't really think the pocket buddies were a great fad to begin with. It's not a badly made misc, but it's not a very attractive one either. The Pocket Santa is going straight to FU tier, but it definitely has an argument for Lump of Coal tier. The Big Man of Christmas, or Bach as it's better known, is an all-class Santa hat from 2011, making it one of the oldest Smissmas hats out there. Back in the day, if you wanted to look like Santa, this was essentially your only Santa hat option, and it was back in the day when all classes were pretty rare, so this was really sought after. It was also never craftable and was only available as a promotional cosmetic if you completed a scavenger hunt. For those reasons, this was always a top tier, super expensive Santa hat. This is what the Bach looks like with the Allfather and the Kringle collection. This was essentially the classic Santa soldier from back in the day. That said, I understand why people wanted cheaper options of the Santa hat, and I don't begrudge them for going for some of the cheaper ones, especially when they're modeled similar if not better quality. So to sum up, the Bach is an oldie but a goodie. The modeling still looks good, it's simple, it's classic, it doesn't look out of place on any of the classes. So why is it not an S tier? Well, honestly, I feel like some of the Santa hats we've got now, the modeling is actually a little bit better looking than the Bach, and I'm not gonna let nostalgia just drive this all the way up to S tier for me, but it's a very solid A tier. Go ahead and leave your hateful comments below. The Merry Cone is a hat you may have forgotten about or tried to forget about. It's an all-class hat that's essentially a garden gnome that looks like Santa. The brim is Santa's belt and belt buckle, and at the top of it, it almost looks like a golf ball, but I think that's supposed to be a ceramic pom-pom. As you can see, it looks just like you would expect a Santa garden gnome to look like, except that it's on your hat in the shape of a party hat. What can I say? It's a weird shape and it's a weird looking hat, and man, I've never seen this in game, not even when people are memeing, which is to say something in a game like TF2. Merry Cone, congratulations, you're our first Lump of Coal entry of the entire tier list. Similar to the Colonel Kringle, the Jolly Jester is an all-class assassin grade hat that combines two types of hat, in this case the Santa hat with a Jester's hat, Also similar to Colonel Kringle. It looks terrible in all classes. It does not look like something you'd see in real life. It's not believable in-game either. Also, I don't like the modeling. You don't see, there's just a uniform line up here. There's nothing indicating actual fuzziness or furriness or any kind of texture on it other than the stitching on each one of the 4 legs. It's just not a very well modeled hat. So joining the Mary Cone in lump of coal territory is the Jester hat. The Old Man Frost is a heavy exclusive hat. It gives him a bit more of an elf style hat. I like this belt buckle because it breaks up the brim. The jingle bell is a nice touch with the tassel. Thankfully the bell does not make noise. The pince-nez glasses, it's kind of cool to have that and the facial hair all built into a single hat. One thing I don't love though is this pointy ear that he's given. The cool thing though about the facial hair, this mustache is a bit of a unique look for a Santa loadout, but thankfully it does not clip with other facial hair. So if you want to rock an Allfather or a Cuban bristle crisis, you can do that with this hat no problem. So with all that said, I'm actually going to put the Old Man Frost at the top of A tier. If you want to look like Santa's heavy, you really can't do too much better than the Old Man Frost. The Towering Pillar of Beanies is another all-class. It's meant to be 3 hats stacked on top of each other, with the topmost hat being a Santa hat, which is why it makes this list. Unfortunately, the middle hat kind of blends into the bottom hat and it doesn't really make it clear that it's 3 separate hats. I also don't like how the style is identical for all 9 classes, especially when it looks equally bad on all of them. Honestly, it's a bit of a weird gimmick of a hat to begin with, but I don't even think it's well executed for what it's trying to be. Towering Pillar of Beanie goes straight to Lump of Coal, though I guess I'm gonna put it at the top of Lump of Coal. The Allfather is one of the OG Smissmas misks. It's from 2011 and it's essentially a Santa beard. For the first 5 years of its existence, only Soldier and Heavy could wear it, but then in 2016, they expanded it so other classes could wear it as well. Thankfully, they did not add it for Scout or Pyro or Spy, because that just would look weird. What I like about the Allfather is you can wear it in Santa loadouts and it's perfect, but it also doesn't look out of place in other loadouts throughout the year, especially when you just need a beard cosmet. Allfather's headed straight to the S tier. If you want to look like Santa, having this Santa beard is fantastic. Yeah, modeling's good on it. It's a great misc. You can still choose your Santa hat on top of it. Easy S tier. The Jolly Jingler is an all-class hat, which is a little weird. It's definitely unique. It's kind of like a spring inside a Santa hat, which jiggles and has jiggle bones, and it makes the bell ring on top of your head. The constant jingling that it makes can kind of give away your position, and it's not always a great strategy decision gameplay-wise. It can also be pretty annoying for you as the player to constantly hear it ringing. That said, I do appreciate how the hat moves in-game. It's very unique, and it certainly sets out to do what it planned to do. The modeling's also not bad on the fringe and the fur either, so it gets some points for that. I thought the Jolly Jingler was going to go into delete tier, but I'm actually going to put it at the top of C tier. You know, it's perfectly fine. I actually don't think we need to delete it out of the game, putting it at the top of C tier. The Smissmas Saxton is another all-class Santa hat, this time with some crocodile teeth and a bit more visible stitching on the fringe and also the hat itself. The pom-pom also jiggles around as you move, which is a nice touch. It does pass the test of looking good on all 9 classes. I know a lot of people say it's a knockoff B-Mock, but honestly, there's worse things you could be copying, and this one does it well. Smissmas Saxton, you go right into the B tier. It's certainly better than the C tier guys. It's a good looking Santa hat, solid B tier. The Santa Archimedes is a medic-only misc that essentially just puts Archimedes in a cute little Santa costume. It gives him a beard, a Santa hat, a little Santa coat. It even gives him these boots and a bag. It's really adorable, and he wobbles around on your shoulder. Is it a little bit over the top? Is it a little overly silly? Is it a little overly cutesy? Yes, yes, and yes. And yet, at the end of the day, it is a medic-only misc that takes an existing character, dresses him as Santa, adds adorable details, and I'd be lying if I didn't say this is one of my absolute favorite Smissmas cosmetics. I look forward to wearing him for 1 month a year, every year, and I'm gonna do it until the end of TF2. You go straight to the top of A tier. Let me know what you think of my rankings and if I missed any Santa hats, and also what's your favorite Santa hat in the game. I hope you're having a great holiday season. Thanks as always for watching, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye!